You're listening to Sydney Live 3 till 6 with Luke Grant, filling in for Ben Fordham on 2GB 873, the Power Station.
19 to 5, our callers stay right there. I'll come to you a little bit later on. Australia's immigration intake is set to drop by a massive 15% thanks to the government's 457 visa crackdown. The announcement acts the program, which allows foreigners to temporarily work in Australia, will reportedly cut our immigration numbers to 160,000 a year. That's down from the current level of around 200,000 a year. The Turnbull government has replaced the 457 visas with two new ones. We told you about them, and there's tougher eligibility requirements like a more difficult English test. Sydney house prices have gone up 17%, or I think 13% was reported the other day, and we have a median house price of more than 1.1 million. It's obvious that we need more supply, less demand to bring those prices down, as we've been talking about through the week and particularly this afternoon. So perhaps a reduction in immigration can be a good thing. But is 15 firstly accurate? Is it enough, or should we do more? William Bourke is president of the Sustainable Australia Party. I've spoken to William several times. He's very good on this issue because it's at the heart of what Sustainable Australia do. As I say, he's on the line. G'day, William.
Yeah, g'day, Luke. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Good of you to be available. Do you believe this figure or not?
The jury's out. The Department of Immigration has two figures. It has what it calls net overseas migration, which includes temporary and permanent migrants sort of as they come and go. The more solid figure to look at is the annual permanent immigration program, which is around 200,000. There's no change on that at this stage. So we have to see what's going to happen in the budget. Hopefully there will be a reduction. As we know, the long-term 100-year average is around 70,000 a year. So once we get back down to that level, we'll be back into the sort of sustainable immigration zone. And
so just to repeat that number, we are now, permanent immigration is at around 200,000 people a year. The 100-year long-term average is 70. And yes, what you're saying, William, is if we get closer to 70, we're some chance of meeting infrastructure requirements, taking heat out of the housing market and the like, and that is having a real go at the demand side of the whole equation, isn't it?
That's right. All of those issues will be able to be properly addressed. Housing affordability, road congestion, public transport congestion, environmental issues, greenhouse gas emissions, all of those things will be able to be properly addressed if we include population in that sort of holistic solution.
Yeah, not easy to do when very often you talk about population, you get the label of racist, which is just stupid. But let's look at other areas here. So 457 might have a reduction, but the permanent intake of around 200,000 is not affected by this. Having said that, are you pleased with what the government has done in the area of 457, and will it actually have any impact?
Look, I think that they are a step in the right direction. It's somewhat of a rebrand, but putting longer-term qualification periods on permanent residency before you get citizenship, common Australian values, those things are positive. They help with social cohesion and population and those types of issues. The great problem, though, Luke, that no one's talking about is the permanent immigration program of around 200,000. There's a so-called skilled element of around two-thirds of that. Mm-hmm. However, the government hides the families of the skilled migrants in that skilled category. So only around 50,000 of the 200,000 permanent migrants a year are actually bringing the skills we want. And we don't know how many of those are actually working in the areas that they've got those skills. So the permanent migration program is actually greatly exacerbating Australia's skills shortages. And then we're trying to bring in temporary migrants to fill the skills crisis caused in large part by an excessive unskilled migration program.
Now, that's an excellent point. Just to go over this so that we understand. You were talking here about the permanent migration, and we've got the government saying 2/3 of that program effectively is bringing skills into the country which we need. But on close examination, which is what you've done, because there are family members, etc., involved, that 2/3 figure is grossly overstated, because the family members who might not then be skilled, they bring the figure down to what, would you say?
Around 50,000 of the 200,000.
So a quarter.
A quarter.
So we've got the government saying it's 66%, but the reality is 25%.
Absolutely. And
what a joke.
And we don't even know how many of those 25% are engineers driving taxis, for example. So it could be as low as 10%. We just don't know.
Why isn't there more said about this?
Well, I had an opinion piece published in the Sydney Morning Herald a few years ago on this issue, but the Liberal National and the Labor Greens governments won't address these issues. I think only a Royal Commission will get to the bottom of all of these issues and start to address our skills shortages by, of course, investing in training and education for young Australians and older Australians who need retraining.
See, that issue is interesting too, because the other day when we had the 457s canned and this new arrangement put in place, it seemed to me the missing piece in the puzzle was this, that, all right, so we're going to reduce the number of people that can come here and fill these vacancies. That's great, and open them up to Australians. That's great. But if you don't have to do it, so you don't have to move or don't have to try this job or that job or whatever, so unless you do something at the welfare end that says, by the way, as a result of us toughening up the visas, there'll be more job opportunities, and we expect you, mutual obligation, we expect you to actually put your hand up and try some of this stuff. It seemed to me that they didn't quite go far enough. What was your take on that?
Yeah, exactly. Look, you need a balance between the carrot and the stick, but also you need to stop flooding the job entry market with the hundreds of thousands of foreign students. This is another temporary migrant category that are fundamentally here for work opportunities and permanent visas. And they're often working in your 7-Elevens, your United Petrols, all of those scams that have been uncovered. They're the jobs that I did when I was, at uni and getting through the job into the job market. They're being now greatly flooded by these overseas migrants, and it's tough for a young Australian to get into those jobs now.
Mm. It must annoy you. It annoys me, and I've spoken to you several times, that the government's allowed to misrepresent the reality of the numbers. I mean, what you've told us today is quite compelling. Yeah. This is a snow job, and I suspect it's done by both the major parties, is it?
It absolutely is. They don't want this to be known. They don't give the Department of Immigration the resources to investigate all of these issues around visa, fraud and so forth, because they don't want this becoming public, because both the major parties are on the gravy train of, higher population growth. For some ridiculous reason, it increases aggregate GDP, but not per capita GDP. So it makes it look as though they've got jobs and growth when it's really a mirage.
Great stuff. Sustainable Australia Party, the only group of people, or one of the few groups of people talking about this, which I think is a very critical issue. William, thank you for your time, mate. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too, Luke.
All the best to you. William Bourke from Sustainable Australia. They've got a website. You can check them out there, but no one else is talking about this stuff. And I don't want to run the old chestnut that, you talk about population, you're a racist, but there is, to me, in my mind, it's too significant for too many people to want to shut down this debate. Now, here we are, just to revisit those numbers that William Bourke told us there. The permanent migration program of 200,000 people, government says, 2/3 of that is to fill skills that we can't fill here. Well, what William told us there was, in fact, no, because many of those people are family members not working. So the figure is more like 50,000 of the 200,000, which is not 66%, but 25%. But it just, gets missed. Maybe it's not sexy enough. I don't know. But I think it's really important. We better break now. It's 10 to 5.